This is Favors Financial Topics, various topics. All right, so let's look at learning goal orientation. A learning goal orientation is the belief that abilities are malleable and can be developed. Individuals pursue a mastery orientation of a subject and are willing to further develop. They reflect a growth mindset. LGO is frequently referred to as a mastery orientation or a willingness to work to develop. Individuals desire to learn for learning's sake. So if we were looking at this in terms of applying this concept here to personal finances, you understand that personal finances is a subject. It's a topic. That's why you have certified financial professionals, self-help gurus. You have all types of people who have developed their understanding about the subject of personal finances. So that means a lot of times they are tapping into what you don't understand and what you don't know about personal finances. And then you end up having to pay fees, etc. But understanding that you need to adopt a learning goal orientation towards this subject of personal finances is something that you need to consider, because if you are always using credit cards to sort of solve any personal crisis in your life, you are operating really from a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset that you are not willing to further develop your understanding about ensuring you have actual funds in the bank. And that suppose if you use your credit card for everything, suppose you couldn't use your credit card, or suppose your credit cards are maxed out. And that's another issue right there, that if you're always maxing out your credit cards and you don't have the money to pay, that's a part of the subject that you just don't understand. That many personal financial professionals always tell you to have the money to pay the full debt at the end of the month, because then you're going to incur a lot of fees, you're going to incur a lot of charges, and that's just going to exacerbate the situation. And so when you are thinking about using credit cards, what's your purpose for using credit cards? And I do invite you to visit Dave Ramsey's website, because I tend to watch a lot of his videos and visit his website when it comes to credit cards. I look at behavior. He looks more or less at just everyday application. And what do you really want to know about credit cards? You understand, I think we all have a good universal understanding about using credit cards to establish and build credit, right? That's just sort of like a go-to statement, but it hasn't been anything that has been clear enough for us to really understand why. We understand now the importance of it because it is connected to the credit score, and that the credit score is now determining whether or not you can get loans, or even if you can get a good apartment. And sometimes in certain professions, it is required if you want to get a job, especially the financial professions. You cannot have excessive debt working in the financial professions, because that speaks to your integrity, that speaks to your ethical dealings, that speaks to your character. And here it is, you want the job to hire you to manage their money. I know insurance companies won't hire you if you have too much debt on your books. And so if you still are a person if you're still a person struggling with credit card debt, way into your 40s, you're missing some instruction. For one, you should only get what you can manage, because if the goal is to build credit and sustain credit and raise your credit score, maybe 2 or 3 are enough to accomplish that goal. So that speaks to the need for us to set credit card and debt goals. And then if you are having a lot of debt issues, then you would have to set a debt reduction goal. And then if you are setting a debt reduction goal, you're looking at your current income and other responsibilities, especially financial responsibilities. That's why I always say to people, just because you get a raise at the job or you get this big bonus, that's really not the time to go and buy a new car or buy a higher level house. Really, if you can stand to stay in your current house for another 2 years and then plan your exit out of that house into the next house, that would actually be better, because you can get a bonus and turn around and lose your job right in the next month because of current economic crisis, especially depending upon the industry. Anytime the stock market is affected or something like that, and you work in a certain profession, you're going to be affected yourself. So you want to think about growth mindset, that your managing finances is a lifelong goal. That is something that I never really thought about, but I get the image of a person homeless, and many images of people homeless, and that is one of the goals that they did not manage, that led them into homelessness. Because, and a lot of times what happens is, people who become homeless, like I have become homeless, are the type of people who are covering everybody else but themselves. They're making sure everybody else have what they need, but they don't sit down as a 100% individual to make sure that they have what they need. You got to make sure that you have sound shelter. You may not always like the apartment that you are in, and you may end up having to move. That's fine, but you have the ability, the financial capacity to pay for sound shelter. So that means you don't want certain bills to outweigh the cost of shelter. You don't always need a fancy car, not where you are in the moment. Even if you make $100,000, you don't always need something that's going to burst your financial budget. Living simply, sometimes thriftily, is just as important, because you got to live longer than that moment. You got to live longer than your current your birthday. You got to live longer than your time on the job. I have listened to multiple audio discussions with Dave Ramsey, and I think I mentioned this in another audio lecture, that you have 70-year-olds who are having to return to work. That breaks my heart. That makes me cry when I think about, you are 70-something years old, and we're not talking about people who may need to work a couple of hours just for some little spending money, a few hours a day, maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week, and they just want a few spending money, or just to kind of make up what they're already getting in Social Security. We're talking about people who are standing on their feet 8 hours a day, or at least 5 to 6 every day, because they don't have a retirement. They didn't plan in their 20s. They didn't plan in their 30s. They didn't plan in their 40s. And that breaks my heart. When I see homeless people, it's like some homeless people have just completely given up. And it's like they don't exactly know where to go, or what step to take, or what to do. And that's why, if we can begin thinking about adopting a growth mindset when it comes to the subject of personal finances, we won't find ourselves in a ditch later in life. That we need to learn about finances and personal finances and debt reduction and bankruptcies. We shouldn't have to go through a bankruptcy. If we do what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do it, in the season we were supposed to do it, then we wouldn't have to take on the strategy of a bankruptcy. And then that affects your whole credit. That affects how you are perceived, because in some applications that you apply to, you have to answer that question. Then it looks like a record. Like a criminal record. It looks like a record on your books, okay, that you were evicted from a home or apartment. You were foreclosed on. You had to file for bankruptcy. You lost your job multiple times, things like that. That doesn't look good. So adopting a learning goal orientation will help you to grow your growth mindset and keep you on a learning path. Don't just get out of the debt and say, "Oh, I won, I'm done." No, you are continuously learning to the day you die. How many times have you heard people who were major contributors to um, the American landscape, so to speak, and died broke? I don't think that's a good legacy. No, you can't take your money where you are going, but I think you can leave a legacy behind in a trust and maybe pay out some scholarships for people, or give money to the homeless organizations, something like that, small business grants, etc. And then encourage learning for learning's sake through your legacy. And that's what I hope to accomplish myself. All right. Hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this series topic. Like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, hit the notification bell for future videos. You can visit my website, which is still in development, reginayfavors.com. You can always email me with a question, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. You will be able to purchase the book by the end of October 2021. I'm hoping that I will have it completely revised rather. It is already written and done. I just have to edit it. It is Overcoming Setback: 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for visiting the channel. Coming soon is my new book that I am working on presently and hope to complete by the end of the year, December 2021, preferably February 2022, and that is Favors: Financial Recovery, Psychological Approaches to Overcoming Financial Setback, with some workbook elements. So it is it will be the book that will support the audio series, although I have developed the audio series prior to actually writing the book. So be on the lookout for this new book. When it comes out, when I finish, I will create an audio introduction to the book. Thank you again for visiting the channel.